No matter what you try to do, you can't deny the truth. No, no. And what the people choose ain't really up to you. Actions always find a way.
Welcome to the Dr. Pope Show, where I talk about identity, meaning, and purpose. Today, I'm joined by Nick Martin, a.k.a. the Orange Line Poet.
Yes, I'm here. I'm Nick Martin, born and raised San Diego, California. The Orange Line Poet on IG. Appreciate you for having me here. This
Absolutely,
really cool.
True pleasure.
Yeah.
So, who is Nick Martin?
Nick Martin is a multifaceted individual who has unhealthy obsession with music and vinyls, but is also a creative poet, a student, mentor, someone that just loves people and loves creativity and what it can do to help people. Also interested in policy, how it can help people through grassroots movements and organizations. So I'm a little all over the place, but definitely a focus there.
Okay, now we're going to dive into all of that. So one of the questions I like to start with was, what's a favorite memory from childhood?
Favorite memory from childhood? The first one that came to mind is honestly like my earliest memory. I was talking to my sister about this like a few nights ago, but my earliest memory was actually we're at the house, and I think I was probably not even 2 yet, and my dad was playing with me near the fireplace, and he had this red truck, and he was singing the Sanford and Son song, and like the theme song, because the truck emulated the actual show. So he was like doing that, and I was just there with him. Yeah, you know it. So it was cool. I don't know why I like that memory so much, but I think that's like one of my favorite ones. And as far as me like actually being a kid, just playing basketball at the rec center, or just, I don't know, just trick-or-treating with my friends one time. I was Spider-Man one year. Actually, I was Spider-Man multiple years, but that one year we went around like the whole neighborhood near my elementary school, and that was a really cool night because I think a couple of my friends, they had like literally like pillowcases full of candy. It's really nice.
So I was cleaning up.
Yeah, we were, for real. And those were some nice houses, so we were getting more than just like
full size.
Yeah, it was cool. So yeah, I think those are a couple of my favorite memories for sure.
What's one thing you learned from a family elder, and how does this guide your life today?
Family elder that I've learned from. One family member that I've learned from is really just through observation is my grandfather. He has a full lived life. Like he's lived like a life, multiple. And I think what he's taught me directly and indirectly is the importance of honoring your values and standing firm to them, but also being kind enough to learn from people as well and have fun and laugh throughout all of that. Like his humor is even dark sometimes, but it's really funny. He's a great person. So he's definitely one of the elders I've learned from. There's multiple that I've learned from in my family, honestly. That's the first that comes to mind, but I think that's probably the most important thing I've learned from all of them is just being able to laugh through some of this stuff that we go through in life and just have people around you to laugh with.
So somehow humor helps you move through life, or
it can, yeah. Like I don't want it to be a crutch necessarily, but I definitely want it to be a part of my life and a way that I like get through things sometimes. You know, because like sometimes people can use humor as a crutch to like to like avoid accountability or things, but like for me it's like more so just like, oh, like this is not the best situation, but it's funny how it happened, or it's funny how this came together, or just find like the serendipitous moments and stuff like that.
Who are you?
I'm someone that's, man, that's a good question. I feel like right now I'm someone that's learning how to discipline my inner child, but also learn from him at the same time. And so it's really interesting because there are certain things that I'm learning that I need to have a good understanding for to get through life as an adult. But at the same time, kind of like what I mentioned earlier with humor, is like maintaining that humor, like childlike humor almost. My younger sister helps me with that. Being able to like play sports or just for fun, of course, just being able to go hang out with friends or something, like being able to maintain that part of myself too, rather than becoming like rigid and like, stone cold because of societal pressures or family pressures or anything like that.
So kind of having this relationship with your younger sister helps keep you young.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
She's mature though. So sometimes I'm like, man, like who's the youngest sibling here sometimes, like between the two of us. But nah, she's definitely amazing. Like literally everywhere I go, like you will hear about her because she's amazing. She's like she's going to be, I mean, she already is, but like when she gets to like my age and older, she's going to be something for real.
Okay. Who are you becoming, Nick? Who are you becoming? So who are you and who are you becoming?
Definitely someone that's learning to say no. I'm becoming that. Also just, I was talking with someone earlier about this, but just like understanding how, as you get older, you start to realize how like adulthood, you realize that not everyone has it figured out, and that's fine. You also realize that, or I'm also realizing that it's okay to have that and not necessarily have a clear path, but at least following something. Because I think with indecision, I think the root of that is like the fear of making like the wrong mistake or picking the wrong choice. But in reality, it's like pick whichever choice you have and own it and make the best of it. And then if it doesn't work out as well as you thought, it probably would have not worked out as well if you embraced it differently. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm just embracing the so-called regrets and just running with that. My cousin, that's another elder. He's not an elder, but he's older than me, but that's another person I'm learning a lot from. He's also a poet. He literally said something crazy like last week, like crazy in a good way. He was like, the regrets have changed like over the course of time. And I was like, the regrets change, like they're not just like something that sticks with you. Like, and when he told me that, I was like, that's powerful. Cause like, I feel like sometimes, at least when I'll hear conversations about regret and things, like we kind of feel like they're just stuck with us forever. But I think eventually, however you get to where you need to get to, like those regrets turn into lessons. Those regrets turn into actually some of the best things that could have happened for you. Like it depends on how you perceive it and process it, of course. But I think that's like one of the most powerful things I heard like this year was that.
I mean, with that, what's been something that's been maybe challenging or hard for you that you feel like you want to share?
I think on a creative level and also just like a personal level, just being consistent with the things I want to accomplish. I think there's a lot that I have in my brain and then trying to execute that is the part where I have difficulties in. But I understand, like I know who I am. I know my personality. Like that's something typically people like me will deal with. So that's something I'm learning to get better at.
Yeah.
So just making sure that I give myself grace and get through that. And I'm one of the things I'm improving on is like actually working a calendar, like on my phone, like the app or something. Cause I don't necessarily like doing that. Not necessarily that I don't like to know what's ahead, but just like, why do I want to do that so far in advance? Like I'll remember. And then I don't remember. And it's like, oh, I should have wrote it down.
You must be leaving your 20s.
I know, huh?
Yeah,
it's a little,
but I used to be able to do that. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like I can't do that anymore. And so I'm like learning like, oh, I see why in high school they're like, here's your planner.
Yeah.
And it's $5.
Did you do Avid?
Nah, I didn't.
Okay.
I thought about it and I think I did like an extra math class instead or something.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're big on that organization and sequencing.
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
Yeah, Avid's great though. Like if you're in high school and you have a chance to take an AVA class, take it, because that will help you for sure.
Well, speaking of that, you do a lot of work with young people. So tell me like, kind of how you got involved in any of that kind of work.
Oh man, where do I start? So I guess initially, like the earliest stuff was just being in church and stuff, and just helping the younger kids in church and just being like an example for them. Even some of the people my age or a bit older as well. And so then that helped plant seeds in me to be someone that I can be someone for somebody in terms of like the educational space. And so right now I do associate counseling part-time to help students like learn about college resources and things like that, which I'm really having a lot of fun with. And then I got into that just because of the nonprofit organizing grassroots space that I'm interested in. I've been a part of for 4 years now.
Man, you're dropping so many gems. It's like I want to slow you down.
I know I'm talking kind of fast.
No, you're not talking fast. It's just that you have such a rich experience, and so like, what led you? Now I want to know what led you to the nonprofit world.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you asked this because it made me think of another quote from somebody that's awesome. And so I was at Cuyamaca College before I transferred to San Diego State University. And one of the counselors there also taught a self-awareness class. And prior to that, so this is the thing. So like in high school, you had a chance to like take like a summer course at a community college before you like started in the fall to get ahead. And so I did that. And I think it was like the first 2 weeks, I was like telling them like, man, I guess I'm just lazy, like in terms of like getting work in. And he's like, you're not lazy, you lack discipline. And when he told me that, I was like, oh, I can change that. It's kind of like the regrets thing that my cousin said. So like being able to like know that some of this stuff is malleable, it helps with me growing and realizing that I'm malleable. I can change parts of myself, improve parts of myself.
You know, I think that's really important for young folks too, right? Like you see, sometimes the work I do with young people, they're comparing themselves to other folks and they think, oh, this person has this figured out. Like, I'm never going to catch up. I'm never going to figure that out. Right. And just what you said, malleable, right? Like you're growing, like growth mindset and just being open to new discoveries and possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So he ended up actually giving me a flyer to this internship, and I didn't know what it was, and the way it was marketed was just basically on helping people in your community. That was basically what they were doing, but it was deeper than that. It was like grassroots organizing and stuff. And so I got into that internship.
What is grassroots organizing?
It's kind of like, from my understanding, it's basically you get people together that want to change something about their community, and then they do it. That's like the most basic way I could say it. There's organizations and nonprofits that can be a part of that, but grassroots, like to the core, is like if there's a problem in your workspace and you want to like unionize your workspace, like that's something you can do. That's kind of like grassroots organized. Like a guy in Amazon, New York, I want to say, Chris Smalls, him and a few others was like, it was just not going well there during the pandemic, and they were able to unionize, and now he's like over the country doing stuff. Like he's a really big deal. So really cool seeing people just fight for what they believe in, because a lot of times it's not just for them, it's for everyone. And so yeah.
So that's kind of the pathway that you want to model your career. Is that what you're saying?
I feel like not just career, but just my life. I feel like, because I mean, it's kind of hard to like make that just a career, because I can tell like a lot of people that I look up to and met in that space, like that's their life. Like it's not just something you go to like get a check. Like you're probably getting phone calls. One of my people that I work with, she gets phone calls literally from the morning, the moment she wakes up till the late evening, just like people like getting info, wanting information on how to get this grant for their nonprofit, wanting to know like when the next event for our thing is, or like, yeah, it's a lot. And then they're not just local, like they affect people throughout the state, and in terms of some of the stuff they do. The organization I'm talking about has more to do with folks who are formerly incarcerated, and helping with that end of organizing. So they're really great people too.
Why is that work important?
Cause I mean, I love this organization because I mean they even helped my own family members, and it's actually based in the community I grew up in with my mom, and so they're great because ultimately, as we know, like there are discrepancies between incarceration for Black folks compared to other groups of people. Mm-hmm. So like I think that work is important because even if they're in the system, right, they still get politically educated by these folks at the organization. They learn that, hey, like you can still vote if you're under this eligibility, like you can still be politically active. And then when you get out, here's how you can be politically active as well. And then using that so they can infect their community and not just like get out, but more so get an idea of how America is structured. Because like the prison industrial complex kind of works as a microcosm of America as a whole. If you really look at it, and that's like a whole nother conversation itself. But it's pretty deep. Yeah. Yeah.
So is that kind of where you going towards the criminal justice? Is that where you want to move with your career?
I think like for right now, I think I want to do that because I see it's directly linked to my people. So I want to help with that in whatever capacity that is, whether it's.
So I'm really seeing these like themes just so far from what we've talked about. And so it sounds like the church, your spiritual, your faith is at least one part of who you are. Then there's this idea of service through nonprofit work, education, political action. So so I'm just wondering how all these things even come together and to how you see yourself as a scholar, as a mentor, as a artist.
I think it's still like a process that I'm figuring out. I mean, it's kind of interesting because all those come together really well for me. I think I'm just in this space where I believe that these things are important because they directly link to human emotion as well as human logic, which I think is why I like spoken word and poetry so much, because you can tackle two through that. And I think that it's just, I feel like this is just the important stuff. Like I really think like if I were to go back to my like time like in 2016 when I just graduated high school and everything and like tell myself all these things, like I'd probably be confused too. But like after working in it for a little while, I kind of get a better sense of how things work, how economics works, how people's decision making just completely transforms people's lives for good and for worse. So
they say that psychology and economics really overlap.
Yeah, which is crazy because it's like I remember one time, I don't remember what age I was, but I was just looking at traffic as a kid. I was like, everyone's up because they need to get money. And so like once I realized that, that's why I was interested in economics for undergrad. But I was just like, okay, so like that's like the initial block that I'm using. And how do I build from that? And then seeing how policy plays a part, seeing how businesses play a part. A lot of stuff is linked, especially since now we're in a global economy where like, if there's a canal built in different places, it can entirely change how the world runs.
Yeah, no, we're interconnected for sure.
Yeah. So it's crazy. Yeah.
Well, you were touching on the criminal justice system a little bit, so maybe I can ask you some questions about that. What do you know about reentry? Why is that important?
So from my understanding, are you talking about like once you get back? I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Once you get back into society. Well, I think that's the reason why that's important is it's an adjustment because depending on how long someone's been incarcerated for, a lot of times you can get folks who will loop back into the system because it's just, that's been their way of life for so long. It's just easier to do life that way.
Yeah.
From my understanding. But like reentry is important just because it's like, it's difficult, getting a job at first sometimes, depending on what your record is and how that goes. So, and then family connections, if you have strained family connections, that's tough. So I think that whole part of a person leaving the system can be a very isolating experience.
Yeah.
And they can also be second guessing themselves because, like, let's say they got in really young age, right? So let's say they didn't get to go to college or finish education, whatever it is. So like that could be a hurdle that they need to overcome. And so like connecting them to like resources like that is important as well. So I think, you know, depending on their age, of course, but I think once they get out again, really just having a sense of community and people they can trust is one of the most valuable things they can have. And
yeah, so, no, you're really making me think about some of the programming I've been exposed to. And so one of them is the California State University system has Project Rebound.
Yeah, Project Rebound's fire. So like Project Rebound, I know a few folks in there too that graduated from San Diego State that were part of that program. So they serve as a community, kind of like what I was mentioning. So they have resources for that. They have different events on campus. They collaborate with other cultural centers at San Diego State. For SDSU's Project Rebound, but it's throughout the whole system.
Yep.
So I think that kind of work is where a lot of folks are able to get a better sense of how the education system works, how the political system works, and do it in an environment that is catered towards them, which is unfortunately one of the few environments that they have. Because like I was mentioning earlier, if they're not able to get a job or kind of have a smooth transition, it could be a really rocky road.
Absolutely. So. No. You're making me really think about some of the work I've done. And so looking at creative expressive arts, integrated in a problem solving court, right? So these youth got diversions, and if they graduated the program successfully, they could, you know, have their records clean and then go off and do whatever they're going to do. And so just being able to hear you kind of give your analysis on the justice system, and then also knowing like that you're an artist and all that. I just think the blending, and I saw it, you know, in my dissertation for 18 months while I was sitting there. No, wait, hold on. No. Let me not get traumatized by all that writing. It was a good thing, and kids, you should, you know, go get your PhD and become a doctor too. You know, and it was really a pleasure to be able to do that. And I remember being in the Midwest and being in the judges' chambers, and you know, here I am, you know, Ricky Pope, like how can I be here asking the judge all these questions? But
that's real.
There I was, and just really trying to understand like the judge's motivation for creating this program, and understanding how participants experience the program. And so one of the things that I really found is that the arts gave folks a means to access their traumas, to think about like the possibilities for their life through writing. And so that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you on, to kind of talk about like how creative expression has been important to your life.
Oh man, that was really cool. I think creative expression is important in my life really because it's one of the few places where I feel like I can just have a thought process that I'm culminating and putting together. It may not be perfect, but I can still do it and then still learn from it once it's finished. It's a product that once I complete it, though, it's not mine anymore. It's society's. So they determine what they think about it, which is fine, which is completely the point, I think. It's like music and stuff. Like I'll hear artists talk about like, oh, I put so much work into this and like people don't like it or people love it or a mix of both, right? And it's kind of just like once you release it, it's not yours anymore. It's like you're marrying off your child, your daughter, your son, you know what I mean? It's different. You're just not gonna like what you think will be cool or what you think will be the best product you put out will not even be what society or community likes the most sometimes.
Man,
so,
no, this,
you know what I'm saying?
It's so consistent when I sit down with, I really love working with creatives. And so I had, what was it, Dylan on, and he said the exact same thing.
Really?
Just,
that's crazy.
Yeah, he said, man, I was putting all this in it. I just make something, this is a throwaway. And then, bro, I love that one. So like, wait, what?
Yeah. That's the craziest stuff. Yeah. I love that about art sometimes. Cause it's like, like I think some of the like natural intuition you have towards whatever your creative process is will sometimes do a lot better than overthinking it. I literally had a dream like I think a week and a half ago, and I was like making all this like all these poems and songs. And I was like, whose lyrics are these? Because I'm like, it's not in my voice, but I'm like, oh, it's my dream though. So like, I am making it. So it's like realizing I have all that in me, and then to wake up and not remember any of it. It's kind of sad, but it's cool though, because I realized, oh, like this is an ongoing thing. Like it never turns off.
You know, someone said like imagination is a preview of what's to come. So
Yeah.
I wonder if a dream could be that too.
Oh yeah, premonition. Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
yeah, right.
My cousin and I,
Yeah.
we talk about that all the time because
Yeah.
it happens. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
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 I have
So
so
that
many
means-
examples.
So that means there's a bunch of books coming. There's some stuff
there's
coming.
a lot of stuff coming.
Okay,
Man. There's
okay.
gonna be a lot of great,
Yeah.
great stuff.
Yeah, we're waiting.
Yeah,
No
I'm
pressure.
excited. Nah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's all love.
Yeah,
Just-
absolutely, absolutely. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff out there that I'm putting together. A lot of great things that the creative space in San Diego is putting together. Like San Diego's fire for creative stuff.
Tell me more about the creative space, because to me, like I've been out in San Diego and
Yeah.
I've been seeing some neo soul, some spoken word poetry spots. Like there's some other spots. Then I was in Detroit,
Okay,
and then
cool.
I was in Atlanta, and so I'm just like, man, like it feels like there's a renaissance emerging of creatives, and you know, with the apps and tech and everything, just kind of being able to merge all that together.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
When you were in Detroit, did you get to visit Motown by any chance?
Nope. Nope. I was there for a psychology conference. There was an
Ah.
African festival. There was the what is this? Yum Yum Village. Shout out to Yum Yum Village. No, their food was so good. I don't even mind saying them on there. Like, yes, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
And then they had a what do you call those? A pop up. They had like drums and music and a DJ.
That's
it was
cool.
just easy. Like
Yeah,
it was just
yeah.
easy to just be able to have that. So yeah, no, it was a really good time. So no, it feels like there's something. Like there's something that your generation and those that are younger are trying to tell us.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely something brewing. Like I just want to mention Motown real quick because I remember when I went, I think I was like 15, with family and stuff. We were in Detroit for a convention and we decided to visit Motown. And I didn't necessarily realize the significance of that place until I got older and really got into music as a hobby, just like learning how to play piano, all that. And so just being there, it was like, oh snap, this is like the recording house / studio that like legends were in.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy to think. It's like that's why I feel like regardless of like your background or where you come from, like wherever you're at, you can make something happen. Like you don't need to necessarily be in like the most popular place to like make your career, your dream reality come true. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's a lot of great places where stuff like you were saying, stuff can brew and like become amazing. So as far as San Diego, there's Black Expression, which I love. That's home for me, really. There's Poets Underground, which I was able to headline their open mic earlier in May. There's Queen Bees that has the San Diego Poetry Slam, but also the open mic that I think Natasha D still hosts. Natasha D is an amazing poet out here in San Diego. And so there's a lot of different places where you can go. There's also Neo Soul Tuesdays, which I think you kind of touched on, which is downtown. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And I think new stuff is emerging too because people are getting like this sense of, I don't know, I think after the pandemic, I think people like really started like wanting to be in person again for obvious reasons, right? But I think like we're really intentional about it now. I don't think we're as like lackadaisical. Maybe I'm just projecting. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself. But I feel like a lot of people are just definitely like more into going out. And when I say more people, I don't mean like the general consensus, but I think the people that love that kind of stuff, they're more active, I think. Like you might have less people at an event, but the same people will come like every week, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for me, I'm just wondering if it's what the world needs, man. And not to be like cheesy, but there's just so much that's going on. And so I think sometimes as music can say something different, or spoken word or poetry, right? Like it could just speak to you in a way that words or conversation just doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of just, I think there's certain things that we want to get across too sometimes that's just hard to articulate without song without poetry, which is why I think I like it so much, because sometimes I'm like thinking like, how do I get this across? How do I even put words together in a sentence? And then I do it for a poem or a song or whatever someone asks for me, and I'm like, oh, like this is what I've had stuck in here this whole time. So yeah.
Okay, bigger question. So if there was a community grant, since you do nonprofit, and I'm listening to you kind of talk about the art scene, and so we had a grant for arts, what would you do with that money? How would you spend that money in San Diego or in a community? Yeah,
I want to have a space where, because it exists already, because there's places like You Belong Here SD, which I heard of, which is a cool creative space. But I want to have somewhere like people can just come and just be whatever. Like if they're a photographer, if they're a musician, if they're trying to put a band together, if they're into music production, like that kind of thing is something I'm passionate about. Just making sure people have a place to do it and not have to worry about the ins and outs or the reading between the lines type thing. That's what I'd want to do, like for creative grant money. And then probably having a showcase for, you know, the people that are a part of that space. A lot of young people, like high school age, college age, they're really into it. Like once they're committed, they're committed.
Yeah, man, because you introduced me to a young kid, man, and I'm like, I got to get him on here.
Yeah, he's mad cool. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, shout out to him. I think there's a lot of stuff, like you said, a lot of stuff brewing as far as creative expression. And I think once people have a space where they feel like they can do it and be somewhat successful with it, depending on what they mean by that, I think it could be really effective.
Because it's almost like, San Diego's not a, affordable city to live in.
No, not at all.
So like, how does an artist do this then, man? Like, is it for the love? Is it like, do you just keep persevering till you figure it out? Or
it depends. I mean, all the people I know, including myself, we work, you know what I mean? I mean, until we get to a certain point where our art can like make money for us and we can live off that, that's great. Yeah. For myself, is like, sometimes I do want that, but sometimes I wonder if it'll like pull all the fun out of it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. No,
but I think a lot of people that are artists want to be paid for their art, which they should. I think that should be something that people are paid for, because not everyone can do it, and it takes a certain skill. Sometimes people make it look so easy till it's like, oh, I could do that. And it's like, nah, like, I don't think you can. And even if you did, you couldn't do it the exact way that they do it, because everyone's unique and like special in their own way, which is why I love it, because like no one can really replicate that. Like,
yeah. But you're really getting at the heart of identity, meaning, and purpose, and it just kind of goes through all of my work. And so really when I'm working with young people, it's like what's your gift, right? Like what's your purpose? What's meaning in your life? Because it's so easy to like just really, get caught up in the socials and swiping and double clicking, double tapping, right? And then it's just like, well, you're not nurturing, refining, like really tending to like what you got. And so I think, like, that's what I really appreciate about your work and just watching you navigate, because you mentioned Cuyamaca, so you didn't start at the university in the 4 year. Like, it was a little different kind of journey.
Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah. I don't mind it, though. Like, I tell people, like, I'm glad it went that way, because I was able to figure out more of what I wanted out of college. And I think, personally, I still think I'd be in, like, the creative / organizing space in some way, but I don't know if it would have gone the way it would have if I weren't there, if it wasn't for, the counselor, Rod Jerges, being there and like giving me that flyer.
It's so amazing that like those moments of life when someone intervenes and
exactly,
but then you have to follow through.
Yeah, exactly. Like for you too. Like that's the thing. Like I'm glad you hold me accountable, because like you intervened, but like in like some of the best ways. Like being at San Diego State after I transferred and like being able to like do poems at different events like throughout the year. Like it wasn't just a one-time thing. Like once people knew who I was, it was like, oh, we need to get him here. We need to get him here. Like I'm still there too. And I graduated. Like I was literally at the CIR for their 20th anniversary. I was at the Alumni Center for the Kwanzaa celebration. So that was cool. It's nice to be recognized for, your talent. it's nice for validation. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily seek it all the time as much as I used to, which I'm glad. Like there's I forget. I think it's like I forget how it goes, but like can't be your true self while seeking validation. Gotta learn to let go. That's infatuation. Shout out K-Tronada and Amine put out that song like earlier this year, and that was like another like nugget that I love. Yeah, so that was cool. So yeah, I think like my need for validation is definitely diminished as I've gotten better and like started doing more. So I feel like I'm in a really good space right now creatively.
I remember I asked you, I was like, man, what do you want to do? He's like, I just want to do poetry. I just want to do my art. And I was like, okay. So yeah, man. And I think it's when success meets preparation and you were ready.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's real cool to see that take off for you and continue to take off for you, because you also did some other stuff. One of your first full memorized ones was
man. Okay, so man, that was a minute ago. So that one of my first, I think it was my first memorized full set at Kumbha Fest, and this was like a week or two before the pandemic started. And one of the talking about preparation, so I bombed the last poem of it, but I still managed to make it work. But it was an interesting time. I don't recommend trying to memorize a poem 1 week before an event. If you're a poet and you're listening to this, please give yourself at least 3 weeks. And whenever I ask poets like for advice on how to memorize, all of them are kind of similar. Like you just have to become the poem. And like that's not the answer I wanted, but that's the answer that still holds the most true. Like you have to become what you wrote out, because when you're performing it, you know, you kind of, I mean, at least for me, sometimes I'll just black out. Like, I'll literally be like thinking in my head while speaking words. I'm like, oh, like I'm in a different section. Like, it's crazy. It's like, I'm still like, once it becomes like second nature, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah.
But it really sounds like you've been working at your craft. Like you've been practicing, you've been putting in the work. And so like that should happen.
Yeah. It does. Yeah. It's just, sometimes I'm just like, man, that's crazy. Cause I mean, I started writing when I was like, I think I was 15 when I seriously like started taking it seriously, like poetry and stuff. And so like when I tell friends like, oh yeah, I've been writing, and like, how long you been writing? Like, oh, a decade now. That's so crazy to say. What else have I been doing for a decade? Like, you know what I mean? So that stuff is kind of cool to say now, like being at this point in my life. Like I'm glad it's still a part of who I am. Like I'm glad that I'm still doing it, because like I don't think I'll ever stop ever.
Because I feel like, man, with all the success, you just got started.
Yeah,
like, I haven't even seen anything yet. We're just scratching the surface of Nick Martin here.
Yeah, nah, thank you. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot to come for real.
Yeah, more to come.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to read something, and then I want you to react to it. So shift gears, and then maybe you can share something else with us.
Okay. Got you.
Yeah, sometimes I do like creative work with young people and offer them a chance to express whatever it is they need to express. And so I wanted to read this one and just give you a chance to react, and maybe give you a chance to read something else too.
Okay,
for
definitely.
Sure. So it's Dear Man I Must Call Father.
Ooh.
I want to start by saying the simple concept of writing this letter is hard for me. And in all honesty, it gets only harder as time goes on. In the past years, since you first came back into my life, I've only become angry and filled with rage. You've been a significant downfall in my life. But truly amongst all of these you-haves, I've come to realize I have allowed you to anger me. And as a result of this anger, I've destroyed, messed up many of my closest relationships. I have lacked trust, empathy, sympathy, and other basic emotions for myself and others. I also have caused much hurt to myself as a result of being hurt and mistreated by you. But I realize that if I'm to continue to hang on to my anger and hurt caused by you, it will only result in a wasted life by me. And I will not settle for less than I know I'm capable of. So I'm choosing to forgive you. I have learned that the act of forgiving a person is not for the person that's being forgiven, but rather for the person that's been hurt. I will no longer hold a grudge against you because I'm trying to accomplish more for myself. I'm trying to become a better man and father eventually than you were able to be. I want you to know that I can empathize with the anger you feel daily. I understand you not having your father still affects you. But words of advice, even though your father is gone, try to forgive him. Try to understand that just as you have a problem, he did as well. To be honest, once you do that, I believe you could change. But until then, I want you to know that not only do I forgive, but I also love you. I must honestly say, until you change, we cannot have a relationship. I know that if I try to have a relationship with you, it would only bring me down. Maybe one day we'll figure this out. Until that day comes, know that I love you, and I hope that life is blessed for you daily.
Wow. They're choosing to forgive and being the child in that situation. Because it's like, as the child, you shouldn't want to have to like put yourself in that position. But like, I think that's where a lot of the growth and learning comes from, is like forgiving your parents, which is one of the hardest things. But I think that's like one of the first steps to like becoming like your best self, which is the poem touched on. I call that a poem. That is really good. That is really good.
I thought it was.
Yeah, I know it is. Like that poem, like I think like the title, the everything, and I think ultimately like that will relate to a lot of people who read it or who listen to it and be like, oh man, like these are the words that I've always wanted to say. I just didn't know how to say it. So like they'll probably thank whoever wrote that and be like, I needed that. I need to hear that. And it also serves as a reminder to them, like, this is where I can get to eventually. It may not feel like this now. It may not be this now. But one day, like, I aspire to get to this point. And then once they get past that point, they're going to be like, man, I can't believe, like, I made it, like, from that far.
Yeah, no, I mean, because, yeah, in my work on forgiveness, you know, you realize that resentment, it's like a boulder. And you just carry this, you know, I got to be mad at somebody because, you know, they did something to me. Right. But sometimes forgiveness can be a gift for yourself. And so, yeah,
that's real. That's really good. Yeah. Who wrote that one?
It's anonymous.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I had a feeling. But no, that's really good, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Of course. I guess it's time for me to
You gonna bless us with something?
I have something. I have a few things, but yeah, so like the book I'm writing is called Above the Waves, The Inner Child. And so I think the premise of it is like a coming of age story, but understanding like, you know, people always ask like, is the glass half full, half empty? And like the approach that the book takes is like, it's important to just drink the water.
Ooh.
And once you drink the water, go like understand what that's like, get more water, share it with others, and like continue. Like if we get so caught up in like, oh, like my life is like this or my life is like that, you might not even get to live. Like, you know what I mean? After a while, like just constantly running through that cycle. So that's something I've been like growing through and going through. So the book, I dedicated it to God and my mom. And so my mom, she passed 10 days before my birthday this year because of inflammatory breast cancer. And so I dedicated the book to her before I even knew she had cancer. But what's crazy is like when I got the call letting me know that she was in the hospital and stuff from my aunt, like on that night, I was literally like going home after class and was like, I need to figure something out. Like once I graduate, like how am I gonna like help my mom? Like should I go out there and be there with her for a bit? Like how am I gonna take care of her and stuff? Because she's been by herself for a little bit for a lot of other reasons that I could explain. I don't know how much time I have left, but that's like a whole thing in itself, which I talk about in the book and like previous poems as well that you can find on my IG at the Orange Line Poet.
You're gonna link all that stuff. You're gonna send me all the stuff and all the places and saying, you know, people come from out of town because it's art. You got to find it though. We got a rich arts.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. But like, so you can send me all that stuff. Right?
I got you. Okay. I got you. I'm gonna find the poem right now. It's called "My Drive Home While You're in the Hospital." I'm trying to see if because I had it pulled up. There it is. And so this poem. For those who are into poetry, like in no different forms, this is called an inflection. And I think if I remember correctly, the beginning word or beginning letter, it kind of follows a certain format or pattern. Not necessarily sure. It's stuff I should have memorized from or could have memorized from my creative writing minor, but It's all good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. So my drive home while in the hospital. Emotion submerged under indifference. An unexpected phone call away from disappointment dissipated into my subconscious, raveling around the grooves of it. Held on to memories so they wouldn't disappear behind the faint picture of your smile. This is what being numb feels like. You were the best. Unconditional love, even in uncertain circumstances. Tears branded into our being. We're resilient. Survival knows us by name. The things you hid so I could have a childhood, like the risk of us losing the house, or the medication you took. Suffering knows my mom by heart. They write love letters to her, asking that she'll forgive them someday for what it put me through. You never became jaded, regardless if the sun was set on the joy you had left. Car rides home, I looked to the moon for hope. I felt safe with its soft light. You both had that in common. The ability to be present, essential, and not need the spotlight while guiding the tides of my inner child. Will we still admire the same moon that they said will follow him home on those car rides? I want love to follow me home like it used to. Will a form of your love follow me even after you're gone? So yeah. When I was a kid, I used to think the moon was following us in the car. So like, I was like, oh snap, like we're on our way home and like the moon's like literally with us. So like I compared that with my mom. I was like, she's just like that. Like she's essential and like she doesn't need the spotlight, but like she's there. Like she's always there. Like her love is always there. Even after she's gone, like my aunts and my cousin, my uncle, my oma, they're all telling me like, you know, that love that she had is with you and it's in you. So like she's still here with us in that way. You know what I mean? So really cool stuff, man. I really love that poem. That's probably one of my favorites from the book. So yeah.
Mm. You said something about love following you home.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's just like after a long day, it's like, man, it could be like whatever you go through, you know what I mean? It's just like, as long as I can like get home and like still feel loved regardless of who's in the house, regardless of like what the day was like will I still have love in me? Will I be like still, you know, not necessarily, I guess soft is the word, but not just soft, but like, will I still be humanized when I get home? Like, will I still be someone that is compassionate, nurturing, also like firm when he needs to be? Will I still be who I need to be for myself and for the people around me? You know, I feel like love takes a lot of different forms, you know.
Yeah, you're making me think like I remember being in grad school and, you know, it could be stressful sometimes.
Yeah.
And I was in Michigan, so I would come home, you know, snow, and it was cold outside. I don't miss the cold. San Diego. Anyway, my daughter, she was probably like 1, and I'd come home and I'd be all stressed out and upset about whatever I was upset about, and we'd sit down and start playing Legos or blocks or whatever it is, man. And like, I don't know. So when you said like love following you home, or like just like coming to love and kind of melting in that and just having like gratitude. And I was still upset now, and I still had some stuff due, you know, and some deadlines to meet. But in that moment, like the anxiety, like the stress, all of that, and just to really be in that moment. And so much of what you shared really, for me, I guess what resonated was like mindfulness and just really being appreciative of the present moment.
Yeah. No, all that's good. Man, you have a story too, because I can imagine like, yeah, that's a lot. You get home, grad school, your daughter, like even now, like your kids just love you. Like literally, like like you're like their biggest, like, yeah, it's just crazy in a good way. And so I love seeing that. So it's like,
so listen, I'm not going to tell you I was late today. See, they didn't know I was late. But listen, man, my son, he wants a sword fight. Yeah. Like, he wants me to wrestle. You talk about you were talking about Spider-Man. I was just like, man, Spider-Man. There's like 3 different Spider-Man masks. I'm like, come on, man. He's trying to beat up dad. I'm the bad guy.
Right.
So he wants to beat me up all the time. I'm like, man, that's a lot.
Yeah. That's cool.
But it's fun. Yeah, no, it's fun.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I remember the question or not.
No, I don't remember the question.
Yeah, but like I think it's just like, I think that's like the beautiful thing about it. It's like you kind of get the chance to like be who you wanted, like, you know, what you wanted out from your younger self or what you want to experience, but also like see what that looks like now. And like, cause we're in a different time, you know, we're in we're in the 20s of this decade now.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think.
Yeah. It's December and
Like
what a year ago.
Yeah, like the whole century is just blowing by kind of. So I'm just like, man. So it's really cool. It's really cool stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Fatherhood must be interesting.
Is that something that you think of?
Oh yeah. I already know. I'm like, once that happens, like I'm gonna be like one of the best fathers, like for sure. I already know that in my mind. Like I'm gonna be him.
Single lady, shout out. No, stop. Get back. We got a plan for Nick Martin. Y'all leave him alone. Stay away. Get back. Yeah. Let's see here. I have more questions. Tell me about the 3 most influential people in your life and how they influence you. Yeah.
I have a lot, and I feel like bad because I don't want to leave anyone out. But I'll go off like the top of my head, like first instinct. So my cousin that I mentioned earlier, cousin DJ, because he literally helped me learn how to be a better writer. I think he's one of the best writers like that I know, because he taught me how to do basically drills, like you know how like layup lines for like basketball. He taught me like, don't think, just write out whatever you have. And then time yourself. Like once you start, put the time. Once you finish, put the time. And like I literally have poems in here that I think is like really great because of that exercise. And just who he is as a person. He's also a very new father. So shout out to him. I'm so happy for him. So I'm excited for that. I think, who else? My sister's pretty influential. Not influential in the sense that she's like always like, I don't know how to say it, but I really like learning and seeing who she is and what she's becoming. I feel like I'm learning a lot from her, even though she may not necessarily articulate lessons to me about life and how to, she's already there. Like she's already a very elevated individual. So she's one for real. Man, who else, man? There's a lot. But I'll say for like the third, shout out to everyone that's like impacted me. You all know who you are. Y'all know who you are. I love y'all so much. And thank you for being who you are to me, because I definitely needed that support system coming up the way I did, and just experiencing like everything that I've experienced like these past like 25 years for myself. Like I could not have done a lot of what I wanted to without y'all's influence and y'all's patience with me. Yeah.
What does support look like for artists? Like, how do you support each other?
For artists, well, one of the things I like to do, I think there is intrinsic value and support and verbal support, but I really think like I'm the kind of person that likes to put his money where his mouth is. I really want to help artists as much as I can within whatever my financial limits are. So if they have something for like $5, $15, $20, $25, I want to help support in that way. Because
something could just be like showing up or just like purchasing
absolutely
items. Okay.
Showing up, just show up to an event, supporting them. And then I think the thing is, a lot of artists can wear their hearts on their sleeves, which is perfectly normal to their creative process probably. So just like, validating that, or being someone that will edit stuff for them. Like if they come to you and like, hey, can you check this out for me? And like, of course, like always, like any way really. It's honestly, artist supporting artists is really just being a kind person to them holistically, not looking for ulterior motives or anything. Like really just being a genuine person. That's the best way.
Books you recommend, 3 books you'd recommend to the audience, and why?
So The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Khalil Gibran's a Lebanese poet from I think the 1800s. He's amazing because his poetry is still like, his poetry influenced me a lot in my writing, and it still holds true today. Like there's a poem, like I think Khalil Gibran on marriage or something, and he's like, how does he say it? It's like, let the waters like between you like not necessarily converge, but like kind of be separated, but flow together. I thought that was impactful because I'm like, yeah, that's how you kind of do relationships and friendships. Like you're not always gonna be like on top of each other, but as long as you're flowing together. So The Prophet, Khalil Gibran. The Book of Healing by Najwa Zebian. That book is cool. Also a poetry book, but it's not necessarily like a poet. Like it's a poetry book, but it's more than that. It kind of just feels like short lessons that you could read daily on how to just get through stuff. And that book was definitely impactful. What else? I wrote them down. The Alchemist, that's a good book. Just learning who you are, learning what's to come. Let me look, because I had a list, because I need to make sure I get all these books in, because I don't want to just, you know what I mean? Let's see where they at.
While you pull that up, shout out. Yeah,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Shout out to The Alchemist. I didn't even mean it in purpose.
Oh, no, yeah. And then Ordinary Beasts by Nicole Seeley. That book is fire. If you want to be a better writer, read that book. That's all I'm going to say. All right. What were you going to say?
No, I got it in. I think we got it all in.
Okay, cool.
Okay, 3 other podcasts you'd recommend and why?
I like Growing Pains on YouTube. I think it's called the Social Proof Network. They're really cool because it's like a Gen Z podcast, and they just talk about like life and society as it is, how that, you know, influences faith or whatever else they got going on. I like Hardly Initiated because it's interesting. It's like a podcast where like different men will come on and like talk about like their life so far, their relationships, their businesses, things like that. I like Banquet Hall podcast. That's actually local to San Diego, from Kyler, and he brings on a lot of creatives from the space, and he interviews them and just learns about their life. And Kyler is great. He's also a poet. So yeah, those are like the 3 off rip that I know that I listen to.
What do you think or hope the world will look like in 5 years?
Oh man, I want the world to be a place where people understand what's really like the reality of society. Like, I don't want us to be ignorant people, like, at all. Like, I don't think the world's gonna be perfect, and that's not what I'm expecting, but I want us to be humanized. Like, I was talking to a friend, like, man, like, how many times do I like eat while walking? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like eating should just be something that you do to like kind of like, you know, reset yourself or calibrate yourself so you're not just like on the go constantly. And I think a lot of people, and it's nobody's fault, it's just how society kind of is. Like, we're always just going. Like, it's a very dehumanizing thing to just, you know, and it's like, you know, because sometimes like if someone asks you how's your day and you tell them like what you really want to tell them, it's like, oh, that's not a part of the like silent agreement that we all have of like telling each other how we really feel. Like, we don't do that. We just say, oh, I'm doing well, I'm doing good, all right, good. Like, I mean, I understand the importance of not oversharing either, because nobody, you know, you don't need to be a therapist for anyone unless you are a therapist. But I think there's a lot of great things that can come out being intentional with people. Like, just be like, slow down a bit. Dang. That's what I need to do too. But I definitely like, that's how I want the world to look like in 5 years. Humanized. There needs to be a lot of humanized people for us to really get what we want, whatever that is.
Just making time to slow down and talk to each other.
Yeah.
Good morning. How's your day?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. To be able to ask those. Okay. So my last question is, what's one question that you wish I would have asked you, and why?
Man, I don't know, man. Well, there's not enough time to like probably talk about it, but I guess like,
no, you got time. Come on with it.
I think just like talking about some of like how my poetry started, like initially
Mm-hmm.
would have been cool. Like talking about like, you know, it started off with me.
Nick
like,
Markin. Nick, see, now I can't talk. Nick. And the meaning of your name too.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Come on with it now.
So the Orange Line Poet, it's based off the trolley that runs in San Diego. So the Orange Line runs through, it's basically the working class line in my opinion, but it runs through 3 different like socioeconomic levels in San Diego, which the other 2 lines in my opinion don't. So like there's the Green Line and Blue Line, which are cool, but I think the Orange Line, it goes from like Santee, El Cajon, all the way to like downtown, but it goes through Southeast. It also goes through the cemetery where my mother and my aunt are buried. And I didn't know how significant that would be until after they passed, which is crazy because I called myself before both of them passed. So for me to like be on that trolley and like, that's cool to me. That's like super significant. That's kind of like God literally like foreshadowing some stuff without me even knowing it. So yeah, the Orange Line, the reason why I call myself that, the whole background story is because someone saw me writing in my journal and they're like, hey, can you spit something? And I did. I thought it was just me and him on the trolley. It was a whole group of people. Like, I think it was like probably 30 people that heard a poem.
Did we get this on video?
Nah, because I was literally just talking to that would have been crazy though if there was some on video. This was like before the pandemic too, which is like, feels like forever ago. So then I got off the train. I was like, oh, that'd be like a cool name, like the Orange Line Poet. Like, it makes sense. It clicks. And like a lot of people like it. Like, it sticks with people. Like, they memorize that. So I think that's really special to me. And then like my overall, like how I started writing, like I started in middle school to like impress a girl I liked. And then we were cool. We're still cool. But like I really got into it as a way to cope with some of the things that happened with my mom and stuff, like her overall mental health and well-being. I used that as a way to like really understand like what was going on and make sense for it for me. And then I just kept going from there. So yeah. Honestly, I think a lot of people were created to create. I feel like that's just in us. Like, we want to make stuff because that's what it just makes sense. So like being a creative in the arts, being a creative in tech, like all of us have something that we want to put out and produce for longevity, as well as having something that we can leave behind. Yeah.
Did you give me this story? Was that the whole story?
Well, I mean, there's a little bit more detail. I mean, like, so it was cool though. Like, so like basically like, I think it was in 8th grade. I was like, oh, like she reads like a lot. She loves reading. So like, let me like write something. Cause I wouldn't necessarily say I was a poet, but I consider myself to be one because I thought of like cool lines every day. I was like, oh, that's a cool line. Let me put it in my notes, which I still do to this day. And so then like that happened. And then she would actually edit my poems like all throughout high school. Like, she'd be one of my editors. Her and somebody else.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, her and one of my other friends, he would edit too. So I just go to them and be the editors. Like, y'all read this before I like type it out and like print out my chapbooks. And so they're the best, both of them. Yeah. So they helped me like with just having confidence in myself, and my writing and who I was as a person. Because high school, I was definitely trying to figure out my identity and stuff, like who I was and all this. And like, I think I was talking to you like a little while back. I'm like, being a Black man in America, like you have that extra layer because like you don't have necessarily a country you can like, you know, pinpoint where you're from. Like, you know, you have Nigeria, Ghana, and those places, Cameroon, but like you don't know like where exactly. So like that adds another layer of trying to understand who you are too. So yeah, it was definitely a weird time for me, but a good time.
Identity, and purpose. No, and I think it's really critical at that age, right? Like the high school to young adult. And so just giving your story and the counselor at community college that was helpful for you. Yes. Yeah, right? Like that's identity, meaning, and purpose. And also thinking about some of the work that you've done as a mentor. Like you came to one of my classes, multiple of my classes, but you know, I think the first one stands out, and you read some poems and hung out with us. And so what is it like to, why'd you show up, and what is it like to do that work?
Well, shout out Dr. Pope, because, you know, Dr. Pope, I appreciate you for being who you are, and like you've helped me a lot with my transition from community college to university. So thank you for that. I was able to go because you invited me, because you want me to share this poem. And like, I didn't understand the significance of it because like it was to help teach that class for that day. It wasn't just to show up and like, oh, I did a poem, but like it helped with the conversation. But I think what really like touched me was like it actually sparked ideas and conversations in that room that the young men in there were able to kind of like digest and get a better understanding of themselves in that moment, but also share some of what they're thinking, which I thought was impactful. Like that's the kind of work that's important, in my opinion.
And it looks like you've continued with this work, because I got to see you I think at Mesa, sitting at
Mesa.
What were you doing over there?
Black Excellence Symposium. That was cool. Shout out Robin, who spearheads that. The Black Excellence Symposium is so cool because you get different schools or high school students from different schools, and they come out and they'll go to like different seminars. And so I was able to help lead a seminar, or I did lead my own seminar on collective consciousness and the humanization equation, which is like questioning, identifying, and taking action. that's another book I need to plug. How did I not think of that? It's the Pedagogy of the Oppressed. That's like kind of like a starter for people that are in the organizing space. But yeah, so Pedagogy of the Oppressed, definitely read that. So yeah, it was cool just being able to work with students. The last time I was there earlier this year, there was actually some students from my alma mater and from high school. I was like, what? We out here too? Because like, we north of the 8, so it's kind of weird. Yeah. Like we don't be out here at the cool events like that. You know what I mean? Like when I was in high school, I had to like search out the events that were in my neighborhood. I live south of the 8 freeway, and then for those that aren't aware, like San Diego's kind of like different between north of the 8 freeway and south of the 8 freeway. The more affluent schools or the schools that have more resources are north of the 8 typically, and the schools with less typically are south of the 8 freeway. That's fixing, and that's being fixed, and that's being changed with like high school graduation requirements and such. But when I was in high school, like it was just getting started in terms of like certain graduation requirements, A through G requirements, all that.
I mean, you have such a wonderful blend of knowledge and information at 25.
Thank you. Yeah. I feel like there's so much to know though that I don't know.
Me too. But I really appreciate that idea of learning from younger folks.
Yeah.
Right? And so just the appreciation that you have for your sister, some of the young folks you've introduced me to, and how you can just stay open. You know, like my mentors, because I have some elder mentors, and they keep me young, and they say, "But boy, you're young still." And I'm like, "I'm young. My knees don't feel young." Right? but just being able to say, you know, just how that knowledge, and it's bi-directional, right? Like that bi-directional mentorship.
Yeah.
So I kind of see that in your life.
Thank you. Which is also touched on Pedagogy of the Oppressed.
Yeah.
Read that book. I think it's really good. I think, how can I really like know without learning from people younger than me? I feel like because they're in the middle of the progression of whatever society got going on. So I feel like for me to stay current and me to stay knowledgeable, like I need to know what my sister's into, because that's how I can stay like aware of what direction society may go into. So yeah, younger people are awesome. And then from the folks who are older than me, like they literally just helped me with all the answers or all the questions that I had for myself. Like, so getting that knowledge from them is essential in my opinion. I think you need a balance of both, honestly.
All right. So before we close it out, is there anything else you want to read?
Yeah, let me see what I got.
Or I'm going to do my like, subscribe, follow right now and get that out of the way. I'm going to let Nick Martin close out the show. He's just taking over the Dr. Ricky Pope show. But yeah, no, it's been wonderful having you on, man. It's a true pleasure.
Thank you.
Glad we could make this episode happen.
Yeah, me too. This was cool. I'm glad that this is like, you know, because we talked about this. So it's really cool just seeing it come into fruition.
Yeah, no, I'm going to have you come back, and we're going to maybe, I don't know, do one of the relationship podcasts.
Yeah, that would be something.
Black masculinity, maybe.
Yeah,
think about that.
I'd love that.
It's all going to flow together.
I'd love to be a part of that. Yeah, just we're in touch. Okay. I'm not worried. Yeah, I'll definitely be back. So I'm going to go... I'm torn between two pieces, but I think why poetry fits better with the podcast that we've done today. So why poetry? Poetry crawls the burrows of consciousness, living off of pain and passion that was once thought to be expired in a population of 8 billion. If you ask where someone last saw it, they'll say it was off train hopping with inspiration somewhere. It's elusive, but its silhouette is familiar. It's the kind that is always present but goes unnoticed until it's gone. Poetry's power, its valor, its persistence derives not from survival, but the chance that survival itself will fail, leaving behind nothing for poetry its own. Poetry saved my life. Sounds like a cliche. It's the kind of phrase that means well, but is too vague to the point that it can only be enjoyed by a select few. It's more than a martyr for words left unsaid. It ignites the next spirit and inspires the next flame to grace a page with their pen. A lot of us want to feel seen and feel as if what we have to say actually matters, even if it's just about nothing. That's it.
Well, thank you. If I react to that, this episode's never done. So like, subscribe, follow. Dr. Pope Show. Thank you.
Yeah.
The Dr. Pope Show, sponsored by Superhero Friends. Communication is a key to human development. At Superhero Friends, we're all about fostering communication to enable human development. We help people listen, feel, and share meaningful stories. Superherofriends.com.